I think people will maybe begin to wake up to the fact that they've been living in a kind of fantasy version of what public opinion in the rest of the world holds for Britain, and whether or not they want to live like in kind of the tourist's view of Britain, which is, Harry Potter and Bridgerton and Downton Abbey, or whether they want to live in a different kind of country.
Hello, dear listeners. I know that the death of any public figure can present a difficult time in your life and in struggling to deal with the range of emotions that an event like this may throw up. Bunga is here for you, and we're here to listen, to talk, to converse, or just to be a shoulder to cry on if that needs to be. On second thought, I realize that this moment may be a very difficult one, especially for people of color, in experiencing and dealing with the range of emotions that the Queen's death has thrown up, and memories that may resurface about colonialism, imperialism, death, devastation, oppression, wrought, some believe, by the Queen around the world. So I believe this is a difficult moment for all of us, for myself, Alex, for George. Hi, George. And for Phil.
Hi, Alex.
Hi, Phil.
Yeah, it's not actually a difficult moment, but thank you for that wonderful introduction, Alex.
Okay. Well, now that we've got that established and that
you put on your serious voice, I'm here to listen.
I'm
voice,
here to listen,
which is
I just
a strange one
care.
for a broadcast medium like a podcast. But
just want to create that intimate. We care whether you're sad about the Queen dying, whether you're sad that the Queen ever existed, whatever it might be. We're here for you.
Whether you're an Irish football fan chanting on the stands some songs about your feelings or not.
Yeah, indeed. Or whether you're a provincial Brit, maybe devastated about the fact that there will be no golden jubilee or whatever the one is if you live like forever. Anyway,
I think she had a platinum jubilee already, Alex.
Oh, okay.
But so as listeners might have gathered from Alex's introduction, we're talking about the death of the Queen. We're recording on Friday the 9th of September. So King Charles III, which I think, irrespective of anyone's feelings about monarchy or anything else, you have to recognize that Charles is not a propitious name for an English king. Anyway, King Charles III
why might that be? Why might that be?
Well, things didn't end well for Charles I. So it's difficult, you can't but help note that it's a strange name to give your kid when you know that he's going to be the heir to your throne. I
guess that was quite a headless decision on the part of the Queen. Quite a headless decision.
We've already got George, yes. Alex.
Okay.
Already got George.
Don't try. I mean, listeners will not accept imitations. They'll see right through it.
Okay.
Anyway.
More seriously, tell us what actually we're going to be talking about.
Yeah, so he's not. So though he becomes automatically king upon the Queen's death, he's not. His kind of address to the nation apparently will happen around 6 p.m. our time, so in a couple of hours after we're recording. So we're kind of still in something of an interregnum, and there's going to be quite a few days of mourning.
This is the real interregnum. We talk about the end of history, but this right here, these few hours.
Yeah, these are the real. Well, it's a genuine interregnum in a way, right? Because interregnum is Latin for in between reigns. So
is it?
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
Yeah,
well, it's also very appropriately British because you're almost always in between reigns. Because it rains.
Bloody hell, you're on fire.
Oh my God.
Show some decorum, show some respect. I mean, we are in the intervening period where morbid symptoms can occur. Hence why we're recording.
And bad puns, maybe some of those morbid symptoms. Okay.
So, but what we're talking about is the death of the Queen, with specific reference to some pieces. We've culled some pieces regarding kind of obituaries and reflections on her death. And we wanted to think about kind of, her public role, and also the what her death might portend for the future of the British state, but also think about it in a bit more of its global significance. One of the few kind of things that came out of it that I found quite pleasing to me was the fact that Brazil has declared 3 days of national mourning for the Queen. Because the reason I have to explain to listeners why this is pleasing to me, because Alex, dear listeners, he's a Londoner to his marrow, to the tips of his fingers. A Londoner, a Hoxtonite.
What?
He's a Hoxton hipster, and no matter where he goes, he'll never be able to escape his roots. And so the fact that he went to a country that is a republic, has absolutely nothing to do with the British Empire, doesn't even really have any links to Britain to speak of, and yet still declares 3 days mourning for the Queen, I think the world is trying to tell Alex something.
Well, I mean,
he should come home.
That is entirely down to Bolsonaro, who and I've discussed this with various Brazil journalists and analysts, trying to figure out why he's actually done this and declared the 3 days of mourning, which have no practical implication, by the way. And none of us could really figure out a reason. It's just Bolsonaro's randomness. He probably thought that everybody around the world was going to do it. He maybe wanted to seem statesman-like and then declared it, which is weird because he's also very happy to be a pariah most of the time as well. So anyway,
I thought there was an element of haven't the Bolsonaro family been flirting with some of the old Brazilian royal family?
Well, so there is within the Bolsonarista base some monarchists. I mean, it's very very minoritarian, but literally minoritarian. But it's a very small minority of his base, but they're there. And recently, Brazil celebrated its independence, and it's also it becoming a republic. And they brought the old emperor's heart back to Brazil. I mean, completely farcical thing. And it's funny because Bolsonaro is a recurrent critic of other politicians, especially the Workers' Party's expenditures on public events and stuff. And then he obviously pays to get the embalmed heart of the old emperor shipped to Brazil from Portugal. Anyway, all very farcical.
If you see that on eBay, you got to snap it up. I mean, but it didn't Bolsonaro's announcement. It was kind of on like ye olde worldy, like obviously electronic, but ye olde worldy scroll.
Yeah, and like very bad English. And
I do want to seal.
Yeah,
it was just fucking.
It was naff. I do want to emphasize, or really send out this message that there are Portuguese to English translators who are native in English, who are available for work and don't charge very much. So where to find me.
Happily work for Bolsonaro.
We'll happily work for Bolsonaro. Yeah. Anyway, aside from the whole ridiculousness of Brazil, I think there's a point here about her being the kind of the world's queen. If Diana was the people's princess, Queen Elizabeth being the world's queen, and feeding into kind of Disneyish fantasies of ye olde worldy kingdom, which has appeal well beyond Britain.
So there's 15 governments outside the UK where the Queen is head of state, and 36 other nations of the Commonwealth where she's a symbolic figurehead. So there really is that's obviously not the whole world, but there is a factual basis for considering her to be the Queen of the world.
It's more than that though, because it's like, there's so much interest in places like Brazil, or even some marginal political opportunity for somebody like Bolsonaro to declare days of mourning. The fascination in the US, the very fact that the republic, which separated from Britain, is lowering its flags to half-mast on Nancy Pelosi's and Joe Biden's kind of orders. I mean, it's genuinely like it is a global moment. And I think this will kind of the global attention, which will only intensify over the next few days as heads of state begin to arrive for the funeral, as the cameras descend to kind of watch all the pageantry and all the glamour, which interestingly, is relatively recent. And this is one of the things that The Guardian, that the listeners will find in the show notes, is that this was it's a fairly recent innovation, the kind of the pageantry of the royal family, and that it has corresponded to the democratization of Britain, in fact, that there is kind of greater pageantry and glitz, I suppose, associated with royal family state occasions. Anyway, the point being that this, I think, will the fact that Britons inhabit kind of will feel like they're at the center of the world's attention. Once the camera is kind of turned to something else, and there's plenty going on in the world to kind of draw their attention, I think that's when the kind of actual impact of the Queen's death will begin to be felt.
Hey there, you've reached the end of a short excerpt from an episode that's been released only to our patrons. If you'd like to join us and gain access to around 2 Patreon exclusive episodes a month, please go to patreon.com/bungacast. We'd love to have you.